Hello and welcome to part two of this lecture on medieval fashion. We will concern ourselves in this section with the 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries. Okay, let's dive right into it. The 11th and 12th century. Just a warning, there is more variation and more styles and fashions of clothing, and they'll be coming at you hot and heavy. So let's buckle up, buttercups. All right, both men and women's clothing. The bliaud was worn. Still, if you remember that from the Dark Ages, but with more embroidery, more variations, and also better fitted. As you can see, there are lacings now, either up the back or sometimes on the side, so you can fit the bliaud to the body. For women, we start to see a belt at the waist, more decorative than practical. Also, we have double beltings, as you can see over here, kind of like the kolpos of the ancient Greeks. Plated thongs called lorens. And also you will start to see now a plethora of different sleeve styles. So the first of many, these are called the angel or pendant sleeves because they look sort of like angel wings. Excuse me. The chains was still being used as an undergarment, but it was now known as the chemise, a term which exists to this day for any sort of lingerie undergarment, mostly for women. We also start to see hose being worn, held up by leather ties, also known as points, which we will touch on later. And for outdoor wear, we're still doing mantles. Here's an example from a modern outfitting company that does medieval Ren fairs and reenactments. This is an excellent example of a sleeveless bliaut with a decorative belt, and you can see the chemise sleeves underneath. Also among the upper class, a long mantle trimmed in fur called a palisson, or palisson, still the same thing. It's spelled different, but pronounced the same. You can see sleeveless, trimmed in fur, very full length. Here we see a lovely middle class couple in their fitted bliauts with embroidered hems. Here we see another sleeve variation, the Batwing or Dolman sleeve, which is a full sleeve with a fitted cuff. New garment for men, try to remember this, the shirt, which is basically a forerunner of the shirt, just spelled different. Short tunic, fitted sleeves, neckline usually square round. Now, this is important, an undergarment innovation, braise. The undergarment itself made of wool or linen and rolled under at the waist. If you can hear the lawnmowers and weed eaters in the background, I apologize. There's nothing I can do about that, alas. Now, braids were worn by the peasants. They were undergarments, but they wore them in the peasants, particularly during hot weather. And you didn't want to get your braids dirty, so they were taken up by tying them to points, which are basically just these ties at the waist. You take the cuff of the braids, pull it up, and tie it to the waist so they won't get dirty. Also, among merchants and aristocracies, we also use points to tie hose to the braids. In the 12th century, you start to see the knitted hose, called chausses, were very popular, as you see here on the right. Here's a modern close-up of how you put on your hose with your braids. You can see here in these two examples, the points right here on the braids, and then you just pull your hose up and tie it to the points. Kind of like a modern garter, if you really want to think about it. Headdresses. Some new headdresses, the gorget or gorget, a scarf wound around the necks, often worn with a couvre-chef, which you remember a couvre-chef is a couvre-chef. I'm sorry for the mispronunciation. A couvre-chef is basically just a covering for your head. The barbette, a fitted band of cloth under a cloth hat, and the fillet, worn by both sexes, which is just a circle of precious metal. If you're a woman, the head uncovered, wearing just not a hat, not a cap, a headdress, but just a simple fillet, that means you were an unmarried maiden looking for a husband. Specialty costumes. I do put this in. The merchants were mostly Jewish. Moneylenders were or of the Hebrew religion, mostly because in Christianity, usury or lending money for interest is considered a sin. So if you needed to borrow money, and who doesn't, you had to go to a Jewish merchant, and they did have a uniform, an outfit. This was it. This was not merely a stereotype from The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare. This is what they wore to show that they were a moneylender. A conical felt hat with a brim, mantle, long unfitted bliaud, and then, of course, Hasidic locks and a full beard. Okay, be ready. Throughout this area, this is the golden age of knighthood, so we are going to be looking extensively at the armor of the soldiers. We will start here in the 12th century. During the First Crusade, you get a complete set of chainmail. Some terms we want to tell you about: the pourpoint or gambeson, which is a padded tunic under. Check. Even there's an arrow here, I'm going to put check there. Padded tunic under the chainmail. Chainmail is heavy and it also chafes, so you need something between the chainmail and the skin. Some things, the coif you'll see up here. The coif is a hood. A hauberk is a tunic or shirt made of chainmail or padded reinforced cloth or wool. And the chausses, again, the hose, the chausses. Also, you might be wearing a Spangen helm, particularly if you are German, which is a conical helmet with a nose guard, and then a broadsword and scabbard with a teardrop-shaped shield to complete the look. In the late 12th century, Crusader knights began wearing the surcoat, which you will see here in an example from a movie. A long, sleeveless tunic, often with a slit halfway up the front, which you would need to ride a horse. The good thing about these is they were loose, they fit well over your armor, and they showed your emblems of heraldry, what you represented, who you represented, and maybe who your lord is. So that's why surcoats were so popular. Okay, there's that. Let's go on to the 13th century, shall we? The surcoat, by this time, which we just mentioned, was adapted by civilians in the 13th century. For women, you see here, it has a wide armscye and was worn first over the bliaut and then over a new type of dress, a different type of bliaut called the coat, which was more fitted. Long, full sleeves, they're attached. The surcoat for men becomes more, for civilian men, is more of an outer garment, which we will discuss later. Okay, so let's keep going on with more terms that may or may not confuse, hopefully not confuse you. A sort of outer tunic worn with the surcoat was the coat hardie. Well fitted, made of gauze, and with a higher waistline than the bliaud. This is the first custom tailored garment in Western fashion. So the coat is more bliaud-esque in that you put it over, it can be fitted at the waist, you wear it with a belt. A coat hardie is really a tailored garment for the individual. Gourd, we'll see a pattern of it in just a bit, or of a similar dress. Wide sleeves that fell between the elbow and the wrist. And you can see here the chemise is still worn. Whoops, that's wrong. Where is that? Sorry. There we go. There's the chemise sleeve still showing. And of course, she's wearing the couvre-chef and the gorget. This is the diaper pattern. The diaper pattern refers to this diagonal. Anything really that's diagonal emblem or embroidery is diaper pattern. Here we see two examples of the coat hardie in its full glory. This is also known as the 8 gourd dress. The version on the left you see has a type of sleeve called tippet sleeve. Well, basically just hanging extensions that fall to the ground. Tippet sleeves will be very popular for some amount of time. Let's look at a quick pattern. Here's a pattern you can see for the front. So this is what they're talking about, the 8 gourd dress. Remember, gauze are flare. So they have this, and you can see in these pictures here, it's fitted at the waist, it's fitted at the décolletage, and it's flaring out at the bottom. That's because of the gauze. I'm not sure why I have this neckline feature. I guess it's just part of the picture that I brought in. You can see here it also has tippet sleeves. Tippet sleeves are very popular. In fact, when you graduate, your gown will probably have tippet sleeves. There is sort of an apocryphal tale that tippet sleeves were made so that you could, were basically pockets for women and men, the early extension so you could put things, slip them down the tip sleeve, like money, goods, jewelry, whatever. But again, I'm not sure if that is substantiated. But it's true. I do it on my academic gown. With graduation, I slip my wallet and my phone in there. This is a man's version of coat hardy. On the left, tippet sleeves again. You can see it is shorter and had a lower waist, but again, it is fitted. Surcoats for men. We have a couple of styles. One is just the regular surcoat. These are surcoats for civilians, mind you, adapted from the military. One is a wide, had wide sleeves and a slit at the neck called the amigalt. You can see here. Now, let me not confuse. I got to find a better picture, but for now, the amigalt is the keyhole opening here. This is the coat hardy. He's wearing kind of a coat hardy. This is better because it has longer sleeves. If it has open hanging sleeves, it's a guard corps. Cloaks, you say. I need more cloaks. Okay, how about the ganache, which is sort of a cloak with a wide sleeve, or the tabard, which is similar to the Byzantine lorem. I'm sure you remember that. It was just basically an opening for the neck and then hang down the front, maybe a little tab to hold them together. This is another interesting thing you're going to see more of. It's kind of an oddball fashion statement, but it's going to hang around for a couple of centuries. This is an outer cape with a cape that pulled over the head with a hood that had this long extension called the liripipe. Now, this is the liripipe, this tail, not the hood itself. It's just a hood, a cape with a hood, a hoodie cape, if you will. Tunic, coat hardy underneath, and then there's chausses right here. Well, but liripipe will be around for a while, so get used to it. Women outerwear, mantle, surcoat, coat. Can't be simpler. Peasant women, bliauds. You can see her skirt pulled up, a kerchief draped around the neck to form a gorget. How about some new headdresses? The toque. You hear the chef's toque. Well, this is a forerunner, a stiff banded cap. Looks like the barbette. Gotta say, but it's kind of moved over into France, and it's a little more fitted and stiffer. Peasant men wear it here, wearing a simple hood with a strap on the chin called the coif. Shoes. Let's talk about shoes. Remember earlier when I talked about, in part 1, we talked about the sumptuary laws. Shoes went through a transition in the 14th century. Mid-calf leather boots. Inner shoes become better fitted and more pointed. The more pointed it is, the more status you had. Specialty costume, the nun's habit becomes standardized in this century. Head veil with a contrasting lining placed over the wimple, you can see here. A scapular, which is a long gown with wide sleeves. Depending on the order, usually white or black. Or if you're a mother superior or your rank within the convent. Knights again, how about this? We start to see a sophistication of accoutrement. Some other things, we still have hauberks, right here, yes, hauberks, tunic underneath. We can have some other things we're adding is the vambraces, which are these protected cuffs. The misericord, which is a small dagger on a chain so that you don't lose it. Dagging, you will see, this is dagging. The dagging, sorry about this scribble here. The dagging is this decorative sort of edging. And of course, I hope I'm pronouncing this, the queer boli. I need to research more. That is these knee cops down here. By the late century, the spangenhelm or conical helmet is placed with the more protective, yet less sight-friendly barrel helmet. And we start to see prick spurs. Today we don't use those. Whoops, where's my there? Because they are considered cruel. But at the time, prick spurs were used in combat. We also start to see several religious/military orders associated with the Crusades that had a mission. And they would wear a surcoat with their emblem emblazoned across their chest there. Here's Knights of the Teutonic Order. Here's the Knights Hospitaller. there with a surcoat and a mantle with his heraldry emblem on it. Knight Hospitallers actually take care of people, the sick and wounded, and take care of pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem. Yes, that is where we get the word hospital from. Knights Templar. This is the end of part 2. Part 3 will concern the 14th century and some examples.